The boys would divide up one side of the room, the basement was dark, and the girls would be on the other side, and they each would have a system for determining who was going to have to go into the black hole. And the black hole was this rolled up mattress. And whichever way they get it, and the perfume was, you put perfume on a spot that was related to some incident, there was some significant incident in your life, and the person that ran out of spots or couldn't find enough spots to tell about or something was the girl that had to go in. And then whatever the boys did to pick their person. And then the girl and the boy would climb into the mattress together. Of course, pitch dark, couldn't see. And then the boy just felt the girl all around until he figured out who it was. I'm sure it took quite a while. But so that was her very strong memory, which in that memory of that childhood game was combined a whole bunch of other associations with this whole situation of her childhood. The problem of her childhood was basically this conflict with her father, the father forbidding her to go across the lake to Skeeversville, and now her sort of understanding her own life in terms of always then transgressing, going beyond, whatever the border was set by the authority figure that she'd internalized. Her father, very strong person, very strong personality. And so in the context of the Haitian mattresses, she had this memory of her childhood mattress. Well, that was very good. So that was kind of a little eureka for her. It kind of made a connection. She said, well, of course, I'm identifying with the Haitians. So, like, my life with my father was like the Haitians, and their situation by the Coast Guard. Well, then it became even stronger because she had never told us this before. She obviously knew it, but it hadn't seemed relevant, is that the man in her life, Ron, is a retired Coast Guard officer. He'd been in the Coast Guard. He'd been in rescue work in Alaska and so forth. He'd been a Coast Guard guy. It also happens that he knew her when she was a kid also, but they'd actually been in middle school, been girlfriend, boyfriend. But that's not as important as the fact that he had then gone on into the Coast Guard. So it was literally Barbara Joe, the man she's having trouble with is a Coast Guard person. The Coast Guard are the ones that are impounding the Haitians, and so she recognized in her own experience that she was impounded. So the problems be us. What's the answer of divination system? What's my situation? And back comes the answer from the zone: you're impounded. You're in a double bind. And analyze your situation by this metaphor. The metaphor is very rich. Find the points where it matches up. So that was for her, and of course it's up to her what she does with that information, right? But in terms of the theoria, the larger picture, we needed the fuller allegory. Well, how did that work? Well, it turns out, of course, anyone who knows Lacanian psychoanalysis will immediately recognize that a major term in Lacanian theory is the upholstery button, as the point de capiton. The point de capiton is this upholstery button which in ideological theory holds the meaning system of the culture together. That you need some, literally the way the upholstery button works in a mattress is you've got all that stuffing. You can't just have it all lumping up into one side or the other. You have to distribute the stuffing evenly through the mattress. So you put in these upholstery buttons to bring order, to hold the thing in place. And then Lacan used the upholstery button metaphor to say how a culture, which of course is not complete, right? It has to be a society, to have a border, to mark its boundary and say, this is us inside, that's you out there, you're foreign, you're strange, you're not us. To mark that border, you needed the upholstery buttons to kind of hold your ideology together. And so and classically in all of the analyses for Western society, the Jew has been the upholstery button. That's what you need, is you need some scapegoat. You need some figure that's not you, so you can say who you are. Well, we're not Jews. We're not these scapegoats. We use them as the upholstery button to hold our ideology together and make us believe that we are something, that we have an identity. But of course, the Jew is nothing. I mean, in any real terms, it is what the theorists say is. In fact, Lyotard writes Jew with a small j, because he said what the Nazis tried to do was to make the Jews into things, make them objects, make them concepts in the literate sense, by finding attributes, finding their essence, finding their properties that made them Jewish. And of course for the Nazi that was bad, right, to make them all those bad things that they were. But of course they couldn't really distinguish them from Germans. In fact, they were Germans. The German Jews were assimilated, had blue eyes and they spoke German and they read Goethe and they loved Beethoven, and there weren't any properties, right? Or maybe there was their religion is different or something. But so there was this other kind of object, which was the upholstery button, which is not a thing at all, but it's a relationship. It has no properties. It's not a concept. It's not anything that can be grasped in a literate way. And so in the Théorie's investigation, the Haitian with a small h is the Jew. There's the Haitian is the upholstery button. The Haitian is not us. The Haitian is what we can cut out, what we can exclude, what we can hold off and say, here's the border. You are outside, we are inside. And that's what we're looking for. For there to be a category, there has to be a border, there has to be an edge. There has to be a starting and a stopping point. So this identification with the Haitians on Barbara Jo's part led us to this upholstery button idea. It led us to the identification of the category, the ideological category of the community. The Haitians are not us. They are our other. And in fact, the zombie is like, the worst. Whenever in our movies we want to have something that's really, really alien, it's really different from us, we make it a zombie, we make it a voodoo ceremony or something like in a James Bond film. And others, the stereotyped caricature, othering, denigration of the other. So clearly, of course, what we want to do was deconstruct that kind of othering. And so there we had three levels. We had the personal level, personal story. We had the historical level. We had the anagogical level. The entertainment discourse level was we're already talking about now, just in reference to movies such as White Zombie, or we thought of Miami Vice, film noir. But particularly we're thinking of the tourist story, which is Barbara Jo in her bed and breakfast place. The bed, there it was. Ron was coming down frequently to see her. They were having their lovers' quarrels there in the bedroom of her bed and breakfast place. And so that was the fourth dimension. And so we had a historical structure. Now what we learned from this, we picked one image then of the Haitian boat with the mattresses. That was the image of impoundment. The attunement of the Miami River was recorded the situation of impoundment. Now if someone else did a different reading at a different time, just like with any divination system, you don't get the same answer twice. But it's also like in quantum mechanics, or when you do a quantum measurement of the atomic structure, it's never the same way twice. You don't get a permanent record when you do a reading, because as you know, famously with quantum physics, you've got the uncertainty principle, and something is a particle now and a wave at another time. I mean, you can either find out where it's going or where it, or what the speed is, but you can't find these both out at the same time, is direction. So you do a measurement and you say, well, this is the we can't say about what happens in between the measurements, but we know at a certain point what's going on. Same with divination. You do a measurement, you do a reading at one point, and that's it. And yet it has generalizability about the situation. Well, this is that sort of thing, this sort of mysterious thing that we're exploring, the categorical power of the image, that it's not a concept, let's just say it's not an abstraction, it's a singularity, and yet it has the powers of generalizability. And this is the mystery of the mood for Heidegger. It says, what is the mood? The mood isn't in you, you're in it. The Stimmung is general, and yet you're feeling it. So what is that? It's like we're trying to understand that. That's the new thing that has emerged from images, is that they have mood, they have atmosphere, and that's their categorical power. That's the power that they use to gather holistically something as complex as the whole Miami River. Now, where did that lead us in terms of the consultancy? Here we had this image, we had the mood. Barbara Jo was going off to figure out what to do about Ron. That was her problem. But what about the consulting business? What about the emergency? What kind of advice were we going to give? Well, we learned a couple things. For